The issue is that I've had information that you're flying that drone over this backyard.
Alright,
okay. So you're under arrest at the moment, okay?
Wow!
The officer begins BOI asking what the person is doing. The reply is treated for they are simply working, just like anyone else doing their job. The officer repeats the question, trying to get clarity, while the individual points out that he is not a police officer but are still busy with their own work. The exchange already feels slightly tense, as both sides seem unsure about each other's intentions. The conversation continues with a request to ask a question, which is allowed. The individual then asks WHY here being approached in the first place and whether any crime has actually taken place. They make it clear that, from their point of view, nothing wrong has happened. This raises an important point about whether there is a valid reason for the interaction at all. The officer explains that they received the information about a drone being flown over a backyard. They suggest that this could potentially be against the law, depending on the situation. However, the explanation given about drone rules doesn't sound fully accurate, which causes the individual to question the officer's understanding. This creates a moment of doubt and pushes the conversation into a more challenging tone. The individual responds by pointing out that the officer may not fully understand the regulations they are referring to. They say this directly, making it clear they disagree with what's being said. Then the focus shifts to recording, as the officer asks whether they are being filmed. The individual confirms that they are recording the interaction without hesitation. The officer then questions WHY this wasn't clearly stated earlier. In response, the individual explains that not everyone can easily read written notices, maintaining their difficulty with reading. They also raise a fair concern: how can someone assume that everyone will notice or understand written information? This adds another layer to the discussion, highlighting its communication gap. The tone becomes firmer as the individual explains that he only just started speaking, so if questions about what should have been said earlier don't seem reasonable to them. The officer seems to push back, but the conversation doesn't fully resolve the issue yet. Instead, it ends with both sides acknowledging each other briefly, though the tension is still present and unresolved.
That's what you're doing, please.
What do you mean? What you doing?
Well, I'm at work. I'm a police officer.
I'm at work.
So,
I'm not a police officer, but I'm at work.
Right, okay. Just
wait, can I ask a question?
Yes.
What are you coming out mob-handed for? Has anyone committed any crimes? Done anything wrong?
I don't know yet until I've spoken to you. Because I've had some information that you've been flying a drone over the backyard.
Would that be a criminal offence if we had?
Yes.
It would. And what
not because you've flown it over the backyard, because you're not allowed to fly drones within a certain distance of buildings.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Off it on.
Yeah.
So you know the drone legislation, do you? Because by the sounds of that statement you've just made, I'd say you don't know what you're on about, if I'm honest.
Okay.
But another question for you. Are you videoing?
Yes.
Can you tell me why you haven't told me? Because
it's written here.
Well, I'm dyslexic, sir.
Okay.
It's not okay. It's not okay because it's all right saying it's. How do you know I can read? How do you know I'm not short-sighted?
All right.
It's not all right. It's not okay.
I've just started speaking to you, haven't I?
Aye.
All right.
The individual pushes back, saying the officer should have handled things differently right from the start. They try to make their point, but the officer cuts in, saying there has been a report about a drone being flown over a backyard. Based on that information, the officer suddenly decides to make an arrest. The moment feels abrupt, and the person clearly didn't expect things to escalate so quickly. The officer begins giving the standard caution, but the delivery comes across rushed and unclear. The individual reacts with surprise, questioning what's happening and why it's happening so fast. Here is confusion in the wording, and it's obvious that communication between both sides is not very clear at this stage. The officer attempts to explain drone rules, maintaining weight limits and regulations, but the explanation feels incomplete. At the same time, they call for backup to come to the scene. As to whether this is just a detention or a full arrest, the officer confirms that it is indeed an arrest, which raises the tension even further. The individual then becomes concerned about their equipment, pointing out that it's valuable and should be handled carefully. They warn the officers not to damage anything and make it clear they expect responsibility if anything is broken. At the same time, they resist being rushed, saying they will cooperate but in their own time, not under pressure. As things continue, the individual asks a direct question what exactly are the grounds for this arrest. They repeat the question to get a clear answer. The officer responds that they will explain shortly, but doesn't give a proper reason right away. This delay adds to the frustration and makes the situation feel uncertain. The officer eventually mentions that the arrest is to prevent harm, but the explanation is vague and not very convincing. The individual challenges this, asking how there can be any risk when nothing has been clearly established. They continue to question the reasoning, expecting a proper and lawful explanation. At this point, the individual insists that since have been arrested, they have the right to know exactly why. They ask the officer not to touch them unnecessarily, reinforcing their position. The officer repeats that they need to figure out what's going on, but the lack of clarity keeps the situation tense and unresolved.
The first thing you should have done, the first thing you should have done, excuse me, talking over me now. That's
No,
quite
the
rude
issue
there.
is
No,
that
no,
I've had
yeah.
information that you're flying that drone
Well,
over
unlucky.
this backyard.
All right,
okay. So you're under arrest at the moment, okay?
Wow.
You don't have to say anything, but how many defences meant one question, so we later on in court, you do say it, maybe give them evidence, sorry.
Okay. I'll tell you now, the law, the drone legislation is anything under
I've detained
240.
one of the males at the moment to establish what's going on. If we could have another car here, please.
So am I detained or arrested?
No, you're under arrest.
Right,
Sorry.
wait there, mate, because this is a couple of £100
Right,
worth
we'll
of fucking
pass it to my
equipment,
colleague
right?
then.
And don't you be breaking
Pass it
it.
to my colleague.
You break any of this,
All
right, and
right,
you'll be paying for
It's not
it.
getting
All right,
broken.
don't
All right.
snatch
Sorry.
I'm not
off me.
snatching, right?
Put
Right?
your hand behind your back, Bruce,
I won't. I'll do it when in my own time, when I want, how I want. You're getting sued for it, you know.
Okay,
Believe.
that's fine.
So what's your grounds for arresting me then?
Sorry,
What's your grounds?
I'll get to the ground in a minute, alright?
Don't touch me, mate.
Okay.
No, you've arrested me, so tell me what for?
To prevent any harm, okay?
Any
To
harm
prevent-
of what?
To prevent harm, because I don't know what... I need to establish what you're doing, okay?
Well, if you'd
This
have
is a-
asked, I'd
this
have
is-
told you.
This is a police station, okay?
The officer explains that the situation is based on information from another colleague, saying they were told a drone was being flown over a backyard. They admit they don't know the person's intentions, which adds uncertainty to the situation. The explanation feels based more on a assumption than confirmed facts, which keeps the tension going. The individual responds by asking whether the officer has received any official update or notice about the situation. Here is confusion, as the officer doesn't seem aware of what the person is referring to. This creates a gap in understanding, suggesting that important information may not have been shared properly between officers. The individual then points out that a mistake may have been made, saying it quite directly. However, they also acknowledge that if they themselves have made an error, they are willing to accept it. This moment shows a mix of frustration and honesty, as they try to keep things fair while still defending their position. As the situation continues, the individual asks for the hand restraints to be loosened and requests that all officers clearly identify themselves. They explain again that they have difficulty reading, so they need the details to be spoken out loud. The officers begin sharing their identification numbers and roles, which helps bring a bit of structure back into the interaction. Here is a brief shift in tone as the conversation becomes slightly more casual. The individual comments on the way certain words are spoken, even turning it into a light remark about accents and everyday speech. For a moment, the tension eases and the interaction feels less confrontational. However, The individual soon asks for their equipment to be placed back properly, showing concern for their belongings. They point out that care should be taken, especially given how the situation has already unfolded. The officer responds calmly, but the underlying frustration is still present. The individual then makes it clear that the situation isn't something that can simply be brushed off. They explain that this kind of encounter is exactly why they do what they do, bringing attention to how situations like this are handled. The message is firm but controlled, emphasizing accountability and awareness.
Miss, what's what you done with that,
I've been
please?
informed by another police officer that you're flying a drone over the backyard, okay?
Right.
I don't know what your intentions are, okay?
Okay. Haven't you had the letter off the NCC? Huh?
What?
You haven't had the memo,
What
have
letter?
you?
What
You fucked
memo?
up, mate. Let's put it that way.
Well,
You
that's
have
fine.
fucked up.
Well, if I've mucked up, I've mucked up, okay?
You fucked up. Them thinking of me, can you loosen them, please? Can you all identify yourself?
My phone number is 1959.
I can't read, I've already told you that.
My phone number is 1959.
Go on then, miss.
PCSO 5628.
5628. Where are you based at, miss?
Right here.
Right there. Okay.
6928 base at Washington.
Yourself, sir.
078 base there.
Okay. Now what?
9078.
8.
Yep.
What have you ate for your dinner, like? No, but it's mad the way you say 8, you know. It is. Because like 8 to me is like, I've just ate my dinner. What about you? Behind me, Clarence. Tyrant features. What about you? Will you put that back on my shoulder, please?
Sorry?
Don't be sorry, just be careful, because you haven't been up now, have you?
You what,
you
sorry?
fucked up, you big time.
Well, that's fine.
No, it's not fine, sir, because that's why people like me come here.
The individual firmly tells the officers not to tighten the restraints, arguing that there is no proper authority for doing so. They also insist that nothing should be switched off, making it clear they want everything to remain as it is. The officers respond by saying they do have the authority, but the disagreement continues, showing a clear clash in understanding. Here is confusion in the moment, with the individual trying to make sense of what's happening while still standing outside. They seem unsure why things have escalated this far, especially when they believe no solid reason has been given. The situation feels rushed and not fully explained. The person then explains what happened afterward. They were taken into custody and transported a long distance to another location. Despite the earlier tension, they maintain that the officers involved in the transport handled things in a calm and respectful way, which stood out compared to the earlier interaction. Once at the station, they were brought in front of a custody officer who reviewed the situation. After looking into the details, the officer questioned why the individual had even been brought in. It became clear that there wasn't enough reason to keep Teram detained, and the decision was made to release Teram. After being released, they returned to the original area. An officer later provided some paperwork, but by that point, the individual's main concern was getting their equipment back. They suggested that returning the equipment would resolve things fairly for everyone involved. In the end, they reflect on the experience as a learning moment. They believe both sides gained something from what happened, even though it started with confusion and tension. They emphasize that they stayed calm and tried to handle the situation in a reasonable way throughout. The individual finishes by saying they got all their equipment back and considers the matter settled. They explain that situations like this are the reason they do what they do, bringing attention to how these encounters are handled and encouraging better understanding in the future.
You've got no warrant. You've got no warrant to tell me.
Okay?
Yeah,
I
you
don't
do.
need a warrant.
Yes,
You're
you
under
do.
arrest, all right?
Yes, you do. Don't turn it off.
I've got mine
Do not
on.
turn it off.
Okay? So you don't need. I don't need a.
Back. I'm stood outside Washington. So I was arrested. Took all the way to Sunderland, guys. They took me all the way to Sunderland. But listen, the two cops that come and got me, I swear down, I've never met two coppers like that in my life. Proper sound as. You know, they got me in front of the custody sergeant and they looked into it and basically they were like, what you doing here? So it didn't okay for me to be detained, and I was let go. We came back to Washington and he come down and gave me a piece of paper and said, we're keeping you. I said, listen, give me my equipment back. Everyone's a winner, so everyone's learned something. You've learned something, I've learned something. You know, I'm trying to be nice to get me. Anyway, I've got my equipment back. And what it is, and that's why we do what we do, guys, because of people like Emil you've just seen.